Spurs surviving Premier League relegation by the skin of their teeth with that victory over Everton yesterday. But now the inquest begins into their worst ever Premier League season. Let's join Michael Bridge, who's at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for us, and get the latest from Michael. It's good to see you. Look, ultimately, was it Roberto De Zerbi that kept Spurs up?
Yeah, I think we can safely say that. It's an appointment that's turned out to be an extremely good one. You know, there were question marks at the beginning whether he's the right fit for Spurs. We knew he was outspoken at Brighton and Marseille, but he was quite the opposite coming in. And it's been a pleasure to listen to him in press conferences. He's been very calm, and I think he's dealt with it in a brilliant way. You know, Igor Tudor sort of came in, and I think he sort of told a lot of the players that they weren't good enough, they weren't doing this, they weren't doing that, and the players didn't warm to him. And I think the players needed to hear some more positivity. And, you know, you speak to so many players about Roberto De Zerbi over the last few weeks, and they literally put De Zerbi's work with them on the training field, the meetings he's had. Jed Spence had a meeting with him last week. He knocked on his door. He said, "Roberto, you keep telling us you like characters. I'm a character. I can help." Great. Anthony Kinski, he spoke to him. He had private meetings with him after, you know, the high-profile mistakes Kinski made in Madrid, and then Kinski makes an amazing save yesterday. And, you know, people looking at it yesterday and saying, well, these celebrations, they're a bit over the top. Look, at the end of the day, this is a relief as well. You're right, now these will be short holidays for executives and board members here, because it is not good enough, it is embarrassing, and it cannot happen again. But it could have been much worse if Roberto De Zerbi didn't arrive here. And I spoke to Conor Gallagher and James Maddison yesterday on De Zerbi.
I'm really happy for the manager who come in and steered the ship clear, because I think without him it could have been doom and gloom.
Well, he completely turned around the start of my Spurs career. It was obviously really tough for me and the whole team, but I was in and out of the team, no confidence, didn't feel great physically, and then he come in and showed belief and gave my confidence back, and I was able to do what I can do best on the pitch, and I've really enjoyed the last 7 games, I think, with the new gaffer.
He's just obsessed with football and he's passionate, and when you feel the authenticity of someone who's passionate for Tottenham, because I love this club and I want this club to be successful so bad, and when you see the man who's steering the ship, when he's genuinely, and not just saying it for the sake of it, and motivational meetings, you can tell he means it. That's why he says, like, I have blood inside me, not water. You know, he always says that. It's because he's genuinely passionate about the club, and without that appointment, disaster could have maybe struck, but it didn't, and he takes a lot of credit for that because of the work he's done.
He's really turned it around, and from the first day or two, like, he had everyone like under his wing, you can say. Everyone trusted him instantly, and everything he was doing, it was like, God, like, thank God he's come in, like, straight away.
Michael, I'm sure it's going to be a big summer for Spurs. Have the ownership said anything about how they are going to try and prevent such a disastrous season from happening again?
Well, it's interesting because over the last 25 years, you pick up a programme on the final day of the season, and you usually read Daniel Levy's end of season programme notes, a review of the season, what they look to do better, the mistakes they made, you know. But there was nothing yesterday from board members or Vinay Venkatesham, and there were one or two thinking, does that mean that maybe there'll be any departures? Not so. So Tottenham's non-executive chairman, Peter Charrington, has written a letter to the fans. It's a long statement, so I'm just going to give you the top bits. First one for me is Spurs are not for sale despite speculation, and they're making a commitment to build a squad. Roberto De Zerbi is capable at the highest levels of the Premier League and in Europe. Let's not forget, Spurs aren't in Europe next season, but they have committed, they are promising that they will spend this summer. Also, the investigation going on into the medical department as well because of all the injuries. But a lot of Spurs fans are thinking and saying that we've heard this before, so it is a wait and see. But what we do know with Roberto De Zerbi, he's going to be very hands-on. He's going to have the final say. No player will come in without him saying yes, that they'll be his players. But I think the message is clear here, is that yes, that there were celebrations, but they were more of relief. And it's going to be a very, very busy summer. Over the last few weeks, he's always spoken highly of the squad members he's got here. He loses one player to an ACL, another player to a hamstring injury, and he always talks highly about the person that's going to come in and replace them. And I think that was a brilliant job that he did there, because giving the players confidence, making them feel good about themselves, but he will know deep down that Spurs need much more quality, especially in that final third. So I think we might see even a different, maybe a sharper Roberto De Zerbi than we've already seen at Spurs this season. But I think it's very clear here that this nightmare of a season's over, but they have to reflect, and this cannot happen again.
Thank you, Michael. Kevin, we heard James Maddison and Conor Gallagher speaking there, really crediting De Zerbi. Maddison in particular for survival, basically. Does that hint at all at how bad it was prior to De Zerbi, would you say?
Yeah, and I think that's what it was. It sorted the recruitment, hasn't been great, but recruitment of managers as well. You know, you go from Ange to Thomas Frank, who's a more pragmatic approach. Ange was all out, wanting to attack everything else. Then Igor Tudor comes in, and you're sort of looking at it, and you can see that, you know, but he wasn't able to bring in his assistant, who's supposed to be the key to him as well, because he's sort of more the hard nose, you know, doesn't, you know, hold back, and his assistant was supposed to be the arm round, but he couldn't get a visa, so that was a disaster. But then when you see what De Zerbi's done, Roberto De Zerbi's done an incredible job keeping them up, because, you know, they could, as you've seen the two boys there, the two lads saying, you know, giving confidence just to the squad. You know, Conor Gallagher, who's an international player at Atletico Madrid, you know, done fantastically well at Palace, you know, had these big moves, saying that, you know, his confidence was on the floor, and he you know, he needed someone to tell him he was a good player and give him the tools to go and do it, and no matter how good you are, sometimes that's what it's needed. And when everything can negative outside the club and around it, you need someone to go and take the reins, and that's what he's done. The big thing for him now is what we've just talking about West Ham, is the recruitment. Who does he get out the door, and who does he bring in? Because it's a big moment for him as well, because this is probably something that he's never done, if you like, building a club, you know.
Yeah. We'll talk about Spurs building up in just a sec, but I just want to come back to Thomas Frank. Yeah. Do you think they should have sacked him sooner?
Well, to be honest, he never ever quite fit the Spurs mould, and for me, when I've since I've been playing, if you like, and I thought it was a real strange appointment for me. Thomas obviously has got, you know, he's done a fantastic job at Brentford, which obviously keeps now taking on, and there's no doubt about his credentials, but it didn't ever feel like it was a right fit anyway. So it was going to be difficult, and the owners again took a massive chance on that. But so they had to back him. You know, once you've made that appointment and you've made him the one to take your club forward, you've got to back him and give him that opportunity in time. So I'm glad that they did, because it showed that with with their person in, they're going to give them an opportunity. But again, it probably put them in the position where they've ended up now. And obviously, to have another season like they did last season in the Premier League is a disaster for Tottenham. And De Zerbi's got a lot of work to do now.
So how do they stop that from being a third season to now? 17th place finishes. Will they be in a relegation battle again next season? Well,
I'm sure when Roberto De Zerbi took the job, he got assurances that he will have full, you know, run of the club, if you like, in terms of recruitment, in terms of who he wants to go out, and they've got to back him now. They've got to back him because he's done his first job. His second job now is his recruitment over the summer. Who does he get in? Who does he send out? Who does he get in? Once he's done that, then it's about how he wants to then impose his style on within the team and on the squad. And because they're not going to be in Europe, it's going to be a lot easier for him to have them time on the grass and be with his players, you know, a lot longer. Because when you're in them European competitions, a lot of it's done in the analyst room, and you're not getting that much time on the grass. So he's going to have that week to week, a bit like what Michael's had at Manchester United, and able to mould Manchester United quite quickly into what he wanted them. So that's his next step now, is there's recruitment, and then from recruitment then he will have to then start imposing styles, and he has got some really top players in there. Maddison, who's been out for the season, you've seen there, Conor Gallagher, Momo Kudus, who will come from West Ham. So, you know, Kuklenski, who's been out, or it's easy for me to say,
Kulusevski,
you know, who's been out for a long time as well. Solanke, who's been in and out. So he's got the tools to work there, and I think in his sort of formation, the way he wants to play, his style, he's got some real good individual talent there, which will help him next year, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, so they seem to be the core. Do you think that he will build around that? And then where else do you think he will need to strengthen?
Well, I think, obviously, there's the situation going on about Romero. Is he going to go? Will he stay? Will he go? I think he'll sort of go, well, look, if you're not fully invested in what we want to do, then we move you out. I think that's what the first and foremost. I think the people who've been, you know, always on the cusp, and you hear a few stories here, there and everywhere, he'll go, I want them out. So I think central midfield will be a key position, and the centre half. I think he's got Jed Spence who's going away with England. So they have got some real good, talented individuals. What he's got to do is, he's as a manager now, he's got to have the backing of the board, which it seems he's going to have. And then he's got to make them big calls in the summer, and you can't have, you know, people hanging around and just being there because they want to be at Tottenham Hotspur. They've got to be there because they want Tottenham Hotspur to be better, and I think that's what he'll be looking for, and I think he'll be cutthroat with it as well.
On the side of your screen right now, which takes you straight there. If you're on Instagram and Facebook, use the hashtag Sky Sports FC. Right, Tim Sherwood, good morning to you. I know you've been on already doing Ref Watch. We will get to it right now. We start with the end of the Premier League season, where all eyes were on the battle to beat the drop. Two huge clubs were on the brink, but ultimately it was Spurs who survived what would have been an unthinkable relegation. They stayed up with victory over Everton at the expense of West Ham. Spurs took the lead just before half-time as they took a huge step to survival on the final day.
Slipped in by Tell. Pickford thought about coming. It's back on the boat. Oh, I think it's across the line. Fine margins. Huge moments. Just look what it means.
Spurs knew that a win or draw was enough to preserve their Premier League status. But there was some nervousness amongst the crowd still. However, Tottenham held on for the win as they escaped relegation on a dramatic climax to the campaign.
Spurs salvation from relegation. A final day escaped. They are still a Premier League ever present, and it's West Ham, whose 14 years as a Premier League side comes to an end.
Right, former Tottenham manager Tim Sherwood, was that a cause for celebration or just a season of failure?
Well, nothing to celebrate, that's for sure. Relief for the fans. I understand the reaction from the fans there, but not for the players. Not for the players. I think they need to hang their heads in shame over that season and last season. Even though they won a European trophy, fantastic, obviously. Give them credit for that. But that's when it all started to go wrong, in my opinion. Sacking a winner in Ange Postecoglou. Bringing in Thomas Frank. All right, in hindsight, you know, at the time, everyone thought it was a fair decision to bring him into the football club. It didn't work out. Bringing in Igor Tudor was a mind-boggling decision from whoever made it. We still don't know who that was. And then Roberto De Zerbi managed to have enough time to come in and save the football club from relegation, which would have been catastrophic. So, yeah, loads of questions to be answered, certainly by the hierarchy there. I think huge relief to be able to get over the line. Congratulations to Roberto. This guy is the right man, in my opinion, to take the club forward. I think finally they've stumbled over an appointment which looks like he's going to be never ever a sure thing. Of course there's not, but he will be demanding. Certainly, they've got a group of players there, the hierarchy or the recruitment team, who they believe should be challenging for the Champions League. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought them to the football club. They can't keep blaming the managers who are coming in, who can't get a tune out of them. You know, sooner or later, you can't just think, well, Roberto De Zerbi's come in there now and everything's going to be all right, and then we're going to prove to everyone that it was the manager's fault and not the recruitment of them players. De Zerbi said after the game, there's probably 11, 12 who he wants to keep. And the rest of them will have to go. Good luck trying to get rid of them players, because Tottenham won't give players away. They'll want to try and sell them to recruit their money back or try and make money on them players. It's impossible to do that. this is a poor group of players, and on a whole, there's probably, I would say for me, there's maybe 10 or 12 who I would keep, but sometimes you just can't get rid of some of the players, and they're on long contracts, they're on big money.
We're going to go through your 10 or 12 in a moment, but let's go live to Jeremy Langdon, who is at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for us. Good morning, Jeremy. Job done for De Zerbi. What happens now?
Well, as Tim was just saying there does feel like there's going to be a massive reboot this summer. There are 4 Spurs players, first of all, who are out of contract. João Paulinho, who got the goal yesterday, he's been on loan from Bayern Munich. He's done really well. There's an option to make this deal permanent. 33 appearances in the Premier League, 5 goals. It's felt too like he's been the beating heart of the team over the closing weeks of the season. And most fans we've spoken to this morning want to keep Paulinho. What about Kolo Muani, on loan from PSG? Just 1 goal in the Premier League all season. The fans here this morning less keen about him. Yves Bissouma hasn't played much, only 7 Premier League starts this season. He's out of contract. And Ben Davies, the veteran defender at the age of 33, is out of contract too. So there are 4 players for a start whose futures have to be sorted. And as De Zerbi was indicating yesterday, a big rebuild is coming here.
My target is to start the pre-season with the team I have in my dream.
Having escaped today, they can start to basically drive a bulldozer through that dressing room, because that's what they need to do. It's been a massive failing.
So it feels like the winds of change certainly are going to be blowing through here over the summer. 17th twice isn't really good enough for Tottenham, and 44 points behind Arsenal as they lifted the Premier League trophy as well yesterday.
Jeremy, thank you. So, Tim, De Zerbi says he wants to keep 10 or 12 players. He wants to build the squad of his dreams, all right? Before we get to who those 10 or 12 players might be, are you surprised that he said that?
I think the decision makers at the club are they're very surprised he said that. But now you're going to see the real Roberto De Zerbi. He will not suffer fools. Like Gary said, a bulldozer through that dressing room. He might have been telling some of them players, like I would have done, some things that he didn't necessarily believe himself. But now they've managed to have that relief. Safety is in there. You know, they've secured the position in the Premier League for next year. Now you can start telling them the real truths. You can start saying to the recruitment guys, I need this one out, that one out, get him gone. I need to bring this one in. A, B, C, come into the club. Back me, or I'll leave the football club. He's strong now. He's very strong. He's never going to be in a stronger position than what he's in. He's rescued this club from relegation. He's saved the club. Now give him the tools so he can build this club and take him to the Champions League.
Right, OK, so let's talk about what you think the 10 or 12 players might be who's in his squad who we would keep, all right? So call them Tim Sherwood, Spurs survivors, so the ones who won't be available to go this summer. If you talk us through, you straight away notice there are some big names missing out on here, but just tell us why each of these players you would keep.
The character of this boy, what he's shown.
Kinski.
For me, he's a better goalkeeper than Vicario anyway.
OK.
I don't have him there, but Kinski, after the Atletico Madrid debacle, the character that boy showed, and he makes a save against Hull and a save against Leeds, what probably kept Tottenham in the Premier League. They need to get another goalkeeper, of course they do, but this boy deserves his opportunity.
Yeah, just go have a look through them here now. I mean, Van de Ven's an obvious one, but everybody was, well, a lot of people were thinking, well, he's going to go.
Well, probably
because he's so much, because he's wanted. But now that Tottenham have stayed up,
yeah,
will he stay?
Well, I need to be convinced that he wants to stay. You know, I don't want him to see him flirting with other clubs. I'm not saying he is, but there was a lot of talk about him going to Liverpool, possibly the deal done. Maybe if Tottenham were to get relegated. They're not relegated now. De Zerbi wants to build a team and a squad what can challenge on all fronts. And I think Mickey has to stay, I believe. But he only keep him if he wants to stay. I think his pal, Romero, is quite clear he don't want to stay.
Because he's not on there.
I wouldn't have him. I think it's been a blessing in disguise. He picked up an injury, and this boy, Kevin Danso, who went in there with Mickey van der Ven. I honestly believe that. Now, all the Tottenham fans were like, oh, he's our captain. He's not a captain. He's not a leader. He's not a great example to anyone at that football club. He's tried to throw the club under the bus time and time again. Get rid of him and take these guys with him.
Yeah, OK, so here, some of the notable ones we've picked out. There's more in this squad who aren't in there, but you've got Vicario, you've already made a case for Kinski, you've talked about Romero there, but this is a surprise, will do, for everyone at home. Maddison, Simon's in there, Gallagher only joined in January, Matisse Tell, Richarlison and Dominic Solanke as well.
I'm also thinking, I'm not sure they contributed enough, but I also think there's money to be got for these players. You can't just keep buying players. You know, they have to recruit some money in. I think Cristian Romero on the continent will be valuable. You know, he's out there. He's for someone, but he's not for me. I mean, it's my personal opinion. I'm not sure he's for Zerbi, but I'm not speaking for him. James Maddison had the poor injuries, of course he has. You know, he has glimmers of very good play, but I'm not convinced. This boy, you know, his turnaround of goals and assists, he was a shining light for 10 minutes. You know, in certain games, he doesn't do it on a regular basis. Conor Gallagher's never been the answer for me. Matthias Tell, he's been poor since he's been there. Dominic Solanke, I think there's money to be brought in. I think Tottenham Hotspur need better than him. And Richarlison, who scored 11 Premier League goals. Very vital for Tottenham to stay in the league. He did the same for Everton when they were at the bottom of the league. But Tottenham do not want to be fighting at the bottom of the league. But unless they change things, Tom, and they have a surgery in their recruitment, then they're going to be fighting at the bottom of the league again, even though they've got a real top-drawer manager, in my opinion, now.
We want to know what you think at home. Get in touch on who you would keep and let go at Tottenham now that they're staying in the Premier League. You said that some players, it might be quite hard to get them out because of wages, etc., maybe not a lot of interest. Do you think that all of these 8 will have suitors? And as you've said, that is to get some money that they can reinvest?
Yes, I think there'll be interest. On the continent, definitely for him and him and him. I think they will be able to get rid of them. I think domestically, this man, Everton will take him back in a heartbeat if David Moyes got an opportunity to take him. Matthias Tell on the continent, I think he might be valuable, but probably not the money what they paid for him. And Conor Gallagher, I think he's got a place in the Premier League, but I don't think it should be at Tottenham.
Right. OK, well, let's get the fan view now. Tottenham fan, good morning to you. Mitchell, first of all, before we get on to what it was like yesterday, what did you think of Tim's selections there on who to keep and who to sell?
Good morning. Do you know what? There's not too many I disagree with overall. I was a bit surprised to see Madders on there, personally, just because he's not had the chance really to play at all this season. And I think most of us have really realised what he brings to the team and to the squad. The other one, Xavi Simon, especially with his ACL, probably keeping him out until January. I'm not sure whether that will be a move away from him that's actually possible. And then the only other one that was on that list that I was a bit conflicted about was Matisse Tell. And I'm not saying that he's a world beater. I'm not saying that he's going to go on and become one of the best wingers in the world. But what I do think is that he was one of our more important attacking players in that final phase of the season. One of the few players that were willing to run at his man and create chances and actually score goals. So I feel like my stance is a bit softer on him. But as Tim said, if we want to be back competing where we should be for European places, Champions League places, that squad needs a serious overhaul. And the rest of those names on that list, I cannot disagree with whatsoever.
Kingy there says that Maddison should be Tottenham's next captain. Do you see captain material there, Tim?
I don't personally. I think Maddison, I think he's a good, decent player. I don't think he's a fantastic player. Don't forget he was in the team last year and they finished 17th. So, and Kulusevski as well. Kudos, I think, is a man, he did well when he first come to the football club. I think he will thrive under De Zerbi. A lot of these players will be unrecognisable. I understand that because De Zerbi will bring them out of their shell. He'll play in a different way. What he's playing, the style he's playing at the moment is just to get them over the line. That's miles away from how Roberto De Zerbi wants to play. So a lot of these players might thrive on it and then some of them might go the other way. But he certainly, I was delighted when I heard him say he wanted 11, 12 of that squad and the rest of them can go. But good luck trying to get rid of them because some of them, it won't be that easy.
Mitchell, talk us through yesterday then on the emotions before, during and after the game.
I mean, it's just been pure relief, Tom, for literally since the game started to even to now still. All week it's been horrible. Since we lost at Chelsea, I think there's been a mixture of kind of dread and fear and, you know, just that what if feeling. So to be able to actually get it done and get it over the line, I think we were quite fortunate in the sense that we played an Everton team who were not in very good form, who didn't have anything to play for rather. And but you could see it. You could see it from the players on the pitch on Sunday that they knew what this game meant and just how big it was for the football club.
Did you celebrate?
No, I didn't. I understand the short celebrations because, like I said, it's just relief for the players, the fans, the manager, everyone around the club. But I'm very glad they were short-lived. I was very, very happy with what Zerbi said after the game, with what Mickey van der Ven said in his interview immediately after the game about it being unacceptable and embarrassing how Spurs' season has gone, because it's 100% true. Like you said, 17th 2 seasons in a row. For a club like Tottenham, it should be unthinkable, but it's not, and it's a situation we find ourselves in. So, De Zerbi said it's 7 o'clock when he did his post-match press conference. At 9 o'clock, he starts building towards next season, and that is exactly the attitude we need to have at the club across the whole summer.
Does there need to be a change of recruitment policy? Obvious. I think that's an obvious question. And maybe some of the hierarchy needs to be shifted around. You need football people back at that football club, and unfortunately, when I look, it's very difficult to find any.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, Tim, to be honest with you. I think a lot of Spurs fans have been very, very vocal about just how disappointed we are with the people running that side of things in terms of recruitment. Look, the recruitment of the club has not been good enough for a little while now, and that's reflected in our form. The matter of fact is, in January, when we had this huge injury crisis, we needed to bring a couple of top players in if we possibly could. And, our Johan Lange sat and did an interview at the end of the January transfer window talking about how he didn't want to waste money and resources in players that we might not need come the summer. And it very, very, very nearly backfired on him. So we need people who understand this football club, understand the calibre of player that this club should be able to attract, because that is the only way we're going to be able to bridge, what did Tom say, that 44-point gap, whatever it was, to Arsenal, which is just ridiculous.
Mitch, Vivian Lewis there, Charlie Lewis, they're not stupid people. They're bright people. So I'm just hoping that they see sense and they start recruiting some football people into that football club to make footballing decisions. Now, it doesn't make them redundant. There's still a big part to play in the business side of it. But I always maintain, if everything's correct on the pitch, you don't have to worry about anything else. It takes care of itself.
Yeah, well, I think one thing I believe in football is the way the club is run and handled at the top eventually, trickles down and is reflected by the football on the pitch. Yeah. And, if it wasn't for Ange Postecoglou in that Europa League run last season, I think the feeling would be even worse around the football club. But you're 100% right. We need football people in. We need people who realise what it takes to be able to get us back on track, because, as De Zerbi said, 10 to 12 players that he wants to keep. That's a lot of players that he's hinting he wants to get out of the door. And that alone is going to take a ridiculous amount of work to sort out.
OK, Mitchell, thanks for everything this season.
Thanks, Mitch.
And congratulations on staying up. Thank you. Keep your voice notes coming in. We'll be playing out as many as we can between now and midday. That's Tottenham. Let's go to West Ham, who are still coming to terms with their relegation from the Premier League. But the planning will start in earnest for life in the Championship. Let's go live to London Stadium and join our reporter, Chris Reedy. Good morning, Chris. I know it's not a good morning for West Ham fans, of course. There's been a steady decline in recent times, which has culminated in this relegation. But where does that leave head coach Nuno Espirito Santo? Is he likely to stay to try and get them back up?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it, Tom? You mentioned that steady decline. West Ham really have been involved in a relegation battle for the last 2 seasons. I think a lot of people really thought they got away with one last season, that the 3 that came up went down. But this season, as the others have improved, it's caught West Ham out. And look, you talk about Nuno Espirito Santo and the head coach's position, but, you guys were just talking about Tottenham and in terms of getting football people in. West Ham at the moment still don't have a director of football. There's so much to sort out at this club this summer. But yeah, if we start with Nuno Espirito Santo, it's been an interesting one. 2 wins in his first 15 games, taking over from Graham Potter. Obviously, the upturn in form recently was a lot better until those 3 defeats in a row that took it out of West Ham's hands. I've been covering West Ham all season. I've been interviewing Nuno Espirito Santo in all of his press conferences. We've tried to get an answer on his future. We've tried to get an indication as to what he's been thinking. He's always said that his focus has been on keeping West Ham up, and he was asked the same question yesterday after they were relegated.
None of us had a minute to think about individual future. It was all about trying to stay positive, to keep the belief going, preparing the team. Anything that regards the future is first of all, we have to go to this bad moment. So you are keep insisting me about that, and my mind is not that.
So Nuno Espirito Santo's future is up in the air. The likes of Jared Bowen, Mateus Fernandes, El Hadji Malik Diouf, all these top players that West Ham will have to look at selling. They already admitted previously when they released their financial statement, so they were going to have to sell players. Relegation means they will definitely have to sell some of their key players. So it's going to be a really, really interesting few weeks here at West Ham.
Yeah, it will. Chris, thank you. We are obviously going to talk more West Ham in more detail later on, but just one quick question on this for now. Tim, how likely are they to go straight back up in your eyes?
Depends what players they keep. You know, their best players, I think, are going to be impossible to keep. Jared Bowen will leave. Somerville will leave. He would have to leave. These are Premier League players. Fernandes, he will definitely go. They need to recruit. The likes of Souček, I think, will stay around. I think he's a good player. I mean, I like him. He gives everything for the badge. That's what they need now. The Sassy will obviously go back to Chelsea. Mavropanos has been okay in the last few weeks. You know, really improved. They're going to need to find some players who are capable or willing to play in the Championship. We know how difficult it is. You know, the games come thick and fast in that division. Need to be durable. First of all, they need to find a manager, in my opinion. I think Nuno,
do you think he'll go?
I think he will. I think they will.
By choice?
I think there might be a decision to have. Let's have it right. He never done a bad job. It was too much ground. He had to keep try and claw back, and unfortunately he couldn't do it. But I think his record overall was okay. But I just think they need something different, possibly. Someone in the Championship, knows the Championship, been promoted out of the Championship. Scott Parker would be a great option, in my opinion.
Well, joining me tonight, former West Ham, Newcastle and Bolton midfielder Kevin Nolan. Kevin, welcome along. Happy to be in the aircon, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I don't think I could have got away with this jacket if it wasn't for this fabulous aircon.
Well, look, we are going to start with one of your old sides now preparing for life in the Championship. West Ham's relegation confirmed on the final day. Now there are major doubts over whether Nuno Espirito Santo will remain in charge. Talks have been ongoing today between Nuno and West Ham, with the club able to terminate his contract without compensation. This is due to the club's relegation. Nuno is also able to walk away. So, Kevin, easy one to start. I'm being sarcastic. Should he stay or go?
Yeah, look, I must admit, I was gutted for the whole club. You know, I've got a lot of friends still there, staff members, everybody there, and Nuno's, he turned it round from January. He's had since September. I think there'll be real, deep discussions into this and whether he wants to go for it as well, and if he wants to rebuild, because I think it's not just as easy as saying should he stay or should he go. It's just what his ambition is now. Does he want to go? And because it's going to be a squad rebuild, because you can't help but think that the lad on the floor there, Fernandes, Jared Bowen, Somerville, even the Sassy going back to his parent club. There's a lot and lots to rebuild. So I'm thinking if hand on heart that you'll probably see a new manager in the dugout next year.
When we heard Jared Bowen speaking afterwards, and he said, it felt like this was coming for West Ham. It wasn't a huge surprise to them. Of course, they were hugely disappointed. But how much of the blame goes on Nuno, would you say, for the relegation?
Well, I think Nuno took it at a difficult time. I think it was sort of getting to that point because there'd been a lot of, the recruitment was, since David left, the recruitment hasn't been good enough, and I think that's what ultimately why you see the two teams battling it out. Two similar clubs in the fact that they were battling it out till the last day. So I think that's because Jared's been there for so long. He's seen what it was like. Played in them 3 European, seasons, and then since then they've sort of, you know, tapered off. What they need to do is find it again, you know, and David Sullivan, Mr. Sullivan has done it before, and what he's got to do is find the right guy to get them back where they belong, because they certainly don't belong there. But when there's lots of stuff going wrong, and majority of the time you've got to look at your recruitment, and because they've probably got it wrong more often than not, that's why they find themselves in the predicament they do now.
Well, as I say, we understand that Nuno and West Ham were speaking today about his future. Well, this is what Nuno had to say yesterday.
It's not about me, it's not about what we have to understand is us as a club, we are in a tough place, and West Ham has to go back in the Premier League. But now we have to go through this period of sadness, understanding the frustration and anger of the fans, and rightly so. We have to thank them more than anything.
I mean, it is slightly about you because...
Sorry?
It is slightly about you because you're the manager and fans will want to know whether or not...
Yeah, and they will know, and they will know. They will know, of course, they will know. They will, but please understand, the respect that I have for all of us is not today. It's not today. They will know, of course they will know.
Do you plan to speak to the owners this week?
So you are keep insisting me about that, and my mind is not that. You understand? It's not there. Today, tomorrow, if you have a press conference, next one, for sure we can speak about that. But today, it's not about this. It's about understanding how tough it is.
It's so tough, isn't it? Because obviously you'll understand this from your time in the game, that it's so fresh, and that, you know, Nuno's obviously speaking to the media straight after. He's obviously going to be disappointed, frustrated, to say the least. Does that sound like someone to you who's going to be there next season?
Well, I think he's handled it well in terms, and I think he's handled it the whole time well, and he's been really calm with a lot of the storm going on and around him. What the owners have to decide now is whether he's done well enough since he's been at since September. If they've been pleased with what they've seen from behind the scenes, and it is either one now to take them on. It's always difficult, you know. I suffered relegation with Newcastle, and when you go out in front and someone puts a mic in front of you, everything doesn't seem real, and these lads will be waking up today and they'll have, you know, opinions of what they want, what they see. There'll be people who, you know, believe that the Premier League players, but no, they're not. They're going to be in the Championship next season, and how many of them will you be able to move on? And also the recruitment. So these are questions what I think, and when we're hearing that he's talking with the owners, which will all be getting answered by Nuno and by the owners, and then they've got to decide whether it's him to get West Ham back up, or is it we move on and we find the replacement quickly. But they're going to have to do it, because recruitment is key now. Recruitment is key. It's not been great for the last few years, as I said, since David's gone. So they've got to get this key appointment right.
Yeah, you talk about rebuilding now. Well, let's hear from Gary Neville, who has really emphasised that they need stability.
Forget the player, the manager. I think the manager and Bowen are the two most important figures, and I think they've got to lock that in quite quickly. I'd be amazed if West Ham's ownership haven't put a huge incentive forward to Nuno to stay, and that would be announced, I think, in the next. If they were going to be smart in the next 48 hours, Nuno stays for next season. That's your first headline. By the end of the week, you'd want to try and lock Jared Bowen in if you could, and sort of give him a big contract to stay, which is difficult because they're going to lose a lot of revenue next year. That then stabilises the dressing room potentially, and stabilises the crowd and the fan base somewhat from where they'll be tonight, which is absolutely desperately disappointed and shocked and devastated. But you need, those two are really important, and lock those in.
And you touched on this, but just how important is it that they keep hold of Jared Bowen?
Yeah, and look, Jared's been a great custodian to the club. He's now the captain of the club. But I think, he's got to think about his personal levels as well. He's just missed out on an England World Cup squad. Has he still got ambitions to get back and fight his way into what will be a Europeans in 2 years? He's got a lot of decisions to make, and I think that it's really important there. And Gary's right. They're speaking with Nuno today. I think there's got to be a conversation then with Jared of where do we go, and then it's who is interested, if they are going to let him to go, and if that's his wish to want to leave the club. Because I know we won't be wanting to make the decision early as possible, but for the better of the club and for probably him, it's probably got to be done quicker than quicker than more slowly, if you like it, because if the more it drags on, you sort of then that becomes over the coming months and everything else, and we've seen what it's done to Newcastle. You know, if we can just, you know, with the Isak situation, and is he going, is he not, and then him going on strike. So, excuse me, I think it's really important that they get them messages out to the fans, and we're going to use this money then to build, if Jared's going to go, or no, Jared's staying, and let's build another squad around him.
OK. Right, Kevin's got a cup of tea on the way, so should we get to Dave now then?
Yes, thank you, Bella. Nuno Espirito Santo in crisis talks over his future, but the decline that's led to relegation has been a long one for West Ham. The club were riding a wave off the back of the Europa Conference League victory in the summer of 2023 under David Moyes. We can show you the 10-game rolling average of points per game here from that time, the summer of 2023. Seasons, you're looking in the horizontal, and points per game in the vertical. West Ham doing really well at the start of that season, 23-24. In fact, they were averaging more than 2 points per game at the end of 2023. They'd beaten Manchester United, beaten Arsenal back-to-back, finished the calendar year in 6th position. There was even talk of a new contract for Moyes. But things really have been on a steady decline since then. A new contract was never delivered, and Moyes was confirmed to be leaving at the end of that season. In came Julian Lopetegui with questions over his recruitment and style. You might remember he had an outlay of £130 million, but left after just 8 months. Then it was Graham Potter's time to take over here. This is his dashed vertical line from when he came in to West Ham. He also tried to change the squad last summer, 2025, but 6 victories in 25 games, not good enough for Graham Potter. And here is Nuno Espirito Santo coming in at the start. Well, not quite at the start, but you know what I mean, just a few games in to this season. There really wasn't a new manager bounce here with Nuno Espirito Santo. If you look at the points per game, that 3-0 defeat at Wolves felt like the lowest point just there, and he hadn't managed to turn things around. They did try and pick up a little bit. 1 defeat in 6, including beating their rivals for relegation, Spurs. But there was 3 damaging defeats towards the end of the season to Brentford, Arsenal and Newcastle, meant that West Ham down with 39 points. And this highlights just how poorly West Ham have recruited as well. In the last decade, they have the 6th highest net spend, but a succession of different sporting directors and different managers with different priorities means that they have been left with players suited to different styles. £560 million net spend for West Ham. If Nuno leaves, they will be dispensing with a manager who has the 2nd best win rate of anyone in the Championship since 2013. The top 5 on this list, down to Marco Silva, have all taken charge for 1 season in the 2nd tier. Nuno promoted with Wolves in 2018 with that win rate percentage of 65.2%.